We've almost reached the finish line. This is the penultimate episode in Daily December, and in it I'm going to beat Pokemon Platinum using only a Cresselia. Playthrough rules can be found in the description, so check them out if you're not familiar with my content. In 2022, when I was really getting into Pokemon Emerald challenges, I played the game with Mewtwo and Rayquaza to give myself a measuring stick by which I could judge other Pokemon's performances. And in Platinum, I wanted to do something similar. That said, I don't want to do another Mewtwo run this year, so why not use the Psychic-type legendary that is native to Sinnoh? For base stats, Cresselia has 120 HP and defense. It has 130 special defense, so obviously this thing is meant to be a tank. It has 70 attack and 75 special attack with 85 speed. Unfortunately, it has a slow growth rate. That said, its base friendship is 100, so return is going to be useful early on in this run. That's good for me because Cresselia's starting moves are Confusion and Double Team. The former can't hit Dark-type Pokemon, so I'll have to use Return in those cases, and the latter is banned in my challenges. Through level up, it gets Safeguard, Mist, Aurora Beam at level 29, Future Sight / Moonlight at 57, and finally Psycho Cut, Psycho Shift, Lunar Dance, and Psychic. Through TM and HM, it doesn't have access to that much. The first move that stuck out to me, of course, is Calm Mind. I looked up where you get this TM, and in Platinum, it is not available until the post-game, which is frustrating because I thought Cresselia was going to rely on it, but long-term, the fact that I can't get this TM will make the challenges more interesting. So what does it have access to? Ice Beam, Solar Beam, Psychic, Shadow Ball, Charge Beam, and Grass Knot. Honestly, that is not a great move pool. The fact that it naturally learns Psychic at level 93 means that I will need to access its best same-type attack bonus move through the TM, and in order to obtain it, I'm going to need the 7th badge and the ability to use Rock Climb outside of battle. What that means is for the majority of this run, I'm going to be relying on Confusion, Return, and then later on Aurora Beam. Against the rival outside of Jubilife City, Cresselia has no problems because its stats are outrageous for this portion of the game. By this point, I have learned of the Northern Trainer on this route, so I am going to fight him today, and I'll continue battling trainers all the way until I get to Oreburgh City, just because I don't want to have an early reset against Roark. After all, with this slow growth rate, by the time I defeat the 2 gym trainers, my Cresselia is only level 13. I'm going to be relying on its defensive bulk throughout this fight, so let's see how it goes. Geodude is first. I go for Confusion. It does not one-shot, and strangely Roark's lead attacks with Rock Throw. I really thought it was going to set up Stealth Rock. Next he sends in Cranidos. Confusion does less than half. It uses Leer, lowering Cresselia's defense, and then I take it to Red Health. It once again uses Leer. I'm getting really worried about how hard Headbutt is going to hit. But Roark wasted all of his time because even with the potion, the Cranidos isn't able to attack, and I move on to the Onix. This thing is incompetent, and Cresselia crits. The first Dark-type Pokemon I have to face in the playthrough is in Jubilife City against 2 Galactic grunts. This is a mandatory battle and Lucas is the one who's fighting beside me. By the way, I am playing the female character today. I noticed that Speedrunner was doing this, so I thought that's probably the right choice, but I don't actually know why. Please let me know in the comments if you do. The Stunky isn't a problem, I knock it out and move on with my playthrough to the Valley Windworks. Because Confusion is my best move for a long time, I'm going to do significant early training just to ensure that Cresselia isn't getting too behind on the level curve. Technically in here there's only one mandatory battle against the Commander, but I fight both the grunts. After that, it's time to take on Mars. Her first Pokemon is Zubat, Confusion 1 hits, and I move on to the Purugly. Of course, it's going to use Fake Out, and it is faster, so it hits with Feint Attack, but it doesn't do that much damage. Confusion is doing about a quarter. The problem is the Purugly does have an Oranberry. This is a piece of information I eventually want to put on the overlay, I just haven't found the perfect spot for it yet. Because of the healing, I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to knock it out, but my next 2 Confusions still do enough damage and finish her ace off. Eterna Forest is next, and with Cheryl healing me, I want to make sure that I am doing enough optional battles here. In this location, there are a total of 8 trainers, which make up 7 battles. The first one is a mandatory double battle, then all the others can be double battles, but I'm going to take them on as single battles in this case. Overall, it's just less risky, but it also feels more in the spirit of the challenge. Outside of the forest, there are 3 fishers, but I'm going to skip the Magikarp guy because his experience yields are absolutely terrible. Inside the gym, the trainers aren't going to be problematic. After all, the Roselia are part poison type, so they take super effective damage. With them cleared, let's see how Cresselia does against the second gym leader. Gardenia's lead is Turtwig, and as a mono grass type it's taking neutral damage for confusion, and I just barely can't 2-hit. She uses a super potion so it gets 2 Razor Leafs in, but the damage is inconsequential. Next is Cherim. I get lucky here with a critical hit, taking it to red health. It seeds Cresselia, which is very annoying. This does 1/8 damage per turn, but I knock it out, moving on to her ace, Roserade. Here I have super effective damage, but even with it, I only do half, and the Citrus Berry takes it out of KO range. And then it went for Grass Knot, and I did not expect the damage this does. When I look at Cresselia, it seems like it would be a very light Pokemon. It seems kind of like it's based on some kind of bird. It also has the ability Levitate, so it feels like it's kind of floating. Maybe it's even lighter than air. But then I looked it up, and this thing weighs 188.7 pounds. If you live outside of Canada and the States, this is 85.6 kilograms. Yes, Canada uses the metric system for everything except weight, which is really frustrating. As you can see, I tried the fight again, but this time the Cherim is more of a problem, and then the Roserade just finishes me off with a single shot. I felt there still was a possibility to win because in the first fight, the Roserade used Stun Spore. So if I can make it back to it with green health, which I do, and then it uses Stun Spore, I'll be able to heal and get in enough confusions to knock it out, which is what happens, and I earn myself the second badge. Cut outside of battle allows me to access the old chateau where I'm going to pick up the rare candy, and then I'm also going to go to the second floor through the central entrance and all the way to the right to pick up a TM. It would be nice to have a move that functions similarly to Double Team, boosting my defensive capabilities. And this TM is the perfect substitute. By the way, I was just looking up what this Team Galactic building is called. It is literally called the Team Galactic Eterna building. I realized at this moment that I think I've been saying Eternita City, which is just not correct. It's Eterna City and Eterna Forest. Anyways, I'm sure all of you will help me out with the algorithm on the previous videos commenting about that. Jupiter is next. She starts with Zubat, I knock it out with Confusion, and move on to the Skuntank. Maybe I should have set up Substitute initially. I go for a turn, it does about a quarter. Alright, that's not good. If Night Slash gets a critical hit, it definitely will knock me out. Also, it has a Citrus Berry, so on the second turn it looks like I do nothing to it. That being said, Night Slash is just barely not doing enough, and I am able to knock it out just spamming the normal type move. Next is Cycling Road, and this is an area where you really don't want to mess up your overworld motion. In this case, I got really scared I was going to bump into the trainer who has Endeavor, and then I kind of messed up my pathing, bumped into this guy accidentally. Once the battle ended, I wasn't quite prepared enough, and I bumped into the Endeavor person anyways. What I'm hoping here is that I will one-shot Cyclist Megan's Staravia so that it doesn't get a chance to use the powerful move, and then follow it up with Quick Attack. But Confusion does not do enough damage. Staravia uses Endeavor, and Cresselia is left with 6 hit points. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to go back and fight Jupiter again. But no, the Staravia does not use Quick Attack, and I knock it out. Okay, but I do have to go back to the city to heal. Route 207 has a lot of skippable trainers, but I'm gonna fight them all now, because coming up next is Fantina, a Ghost-type specialist, and I think it would be short-sighted not to do this training. In previous Platinum runs, I have had to backtrack to this region, and it always feels really bad. Of course, there's also a hidden rare candy here. The next battle provides me enough experience to learn Aurora Beam. Obviously, in the place of Safeguard, that move is not that useful. And it is nice now to have a second special move, although its base power is lower than Confusion's effective power. Clearing the cave, I continue fighting optional trainers all the way until I reach Hearthome City. I grab the Shell Bell, head into the gym, defeat all the optional trainers, and now it's time to take on Fantina. First is Duskull, and it can't do a lot of damage, so I'm going to set up Substitute here. It fails a Will-O-Wisp, and then I use Confusion, knocking it out over 2 turns. Mismagius is up next. Confusion is doing about a quarter, and its Shadow Ball breaks my Substitute in 1 hit. Because of that damage range, re-establishing it is not going to be an option, so I just have to try to attack and hope just maybe Confusion will inflict the secondary status condition. In this case, it doesn't, and the Mismagius confuses Cresselia, so that's a reset. As you've been seeing, I have fought nearly every trainer in the overworld up until this point. I really don't want to have to grind on wild Pokemon, so perhaps I will eventually get lucky. Cresselia could not hit itself in Confusion, I could get a critical hit, or I could inflict the status condition. Also, I could just survive all the Shadow Balls and knock the Mismagius out. So I have made it to the Haunter with 7 hit points. Let's pause the footage, we need to look at Haunter's moveset. It has the move Sucker Punch, This is a brand new move in Generation 4, so I need to explain how it works. This is the Bulbapedia page for it. It says that Sucker Punch has a power of 80, and it has a priority of +1. That means it is similar to Quick Attack, but it only inflicts damage if the target has selected a physical or special attack, or if the target has not had a chance to move yet. In this case, I am faster than the Haunter, and I do select Confusion to hopefully one-hit, but it doesn't choose Sucker Punch, so Cresselia wins. Alright, so that was pure luck. Let's move on to Barry just outside of the city. Staravia is first, Intimidate is meaningless, I set up Substitute and knock it out with Aurora Beam. Ponyta is next, and Confusion is able to 2-hit. Prinplup is usually his most powerful Pokemon, but in this case, it doesn't even break my Substitute, and of course, Roselia doesn't stand a chance. Exploring the Solaceon ruins is going to be advantageous today. By the way, I'll talk through the route that I take through here because it's kind of a confusing area. So this is the ordering of stairs I need to take to get to the Defog HM. Top right, bottom left, top right, top left again, and then bottom left. As I mentioned in my first video of the series, the Defog TM is not required, but this area also gives me access to the Mind Plate today, which of course is going to boost the damage of Psychic type moves by 20%. This will make Confusion at least a little bit better through the next portion of the game. Route 215 is next, and there are only 3 mandatory trainers here, and the last of these can be fought as a double battle, but I never want to do that. I made an overworld pathing mistake here and ran into them, so in this case I am going to have to fight them both at the same time. I target the Roselia first with Confusion and knock it out in a single hit. They send in Ralts next, and Return knocks it out. I'm targeting down one trainer's Pokemon first, so over the course of the second half of the fight, they only deal damage with 1 Pokemon per turn. Lickitung annoyingly survives 2 hits, allowing them to bring Cresselia down to orange health before I finish off the first trainer's Pokemon. Luckily, Aurora Beam has 4 times damage on the Gligar, but the Drifblim knows Aftermath. Also, it survives Aurora Beam and uses Ominous Wind. Luckily though, Cresselia survives. When playing this run, I did not understand how Aftermath worked, and it will only trigger if the Pokemon makes contact with the opponent, so Aurora Beam was never going to trigger it. But they have one more Pokemon, Buizel, and it does know Aqua Jet, which is the Water-type Quick Attack. And in this case, priority doesn't even matter because it has the ability Swift Swim, so it moves first with Pursuit for super effective damage. But Cresselia is defensive enough to survive, and I knock out their last Pokemon. That was a really close call. Luckily, I have made it to Veilstone City. This area should be much easier though because the gym leader Maylene is a fighting type specialist. The game is really kind in the fact that it gives you the Mind Plate before you face her. Hold up, which Psychic-type Pokemon can you actually catch before you face Maylene? My first response to that question was to say, Psyduck, you can catch a Psyduck, and you can evolve it into a Golduck, and then it's a Psychic-type, and that would make thematic sense. But when I played Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I did exactly that, and found out that Golduck is actually a Mono-Water type. Doing a tiny amount of research, I found that you can catch Bronzor in the Wayward Cave. That's the place underneath Cycling Road. On Route 208, you can catch a Ralts. It's a 15% chance encounter at any time of the day. It appears again in Route 209, and on Route 210, you can catch yourself a Noctowl, which of course is not a Psychic type, but it does learn Psychic type moves. In Generation 2, this thing learns Confusion at level 41, but here in this game where learn sets make more sense, it can learn this move at level 22. On Route 215, you can also catch an Abra and a Kadabra, so apparently I don't know these games very well. There are a decent number of Psychic-type Pokemon available before you face Maylene. This battle should be extremely simple. The Meditite is a little bit annoying. Return is probably going to do more to it. Rock Tomb lowers my speed, but I'm still faster than the Machoke. Confusion gets a critical hit, so all that's left is her Lucario. From Generation 2 to 5, the Steel type resists the Psychic type, so it's only going to take neutral damage from Confusion. For damage purposes, it is stuck using only Metal Claw, so either way, Cresselia takes the win. Inside the Team Galactic warehouse, I get access to Fly, and I really thought Cresselia would learn this move, but no, it just has the ability Levitate. This thing can definitely not fly. It was at this point that I went to the origin page on Bulbapedia to see what Cresselia was based on, and in this case it says it's based on a swan. Yeah, swans can definitely fly. Why can't Cresselia? The next routes of the game are finally uneventful. It's refreshing not running into any optional trainers that cause problems. In Pastoria City, I have to take on the rival, but once again with Substitute and my other 2 moves, I don't have any problems in this battle. That said, Crasher Wake is coming up next, and I expect that this is going to be fairly brutal. His first Pokemon is Gyarados, Intimidate ruins my attack stat, and I set up Substitute. Gyarados has Bite, which is super effective, but it can't break through my defenses with a single hit. As a result, I only get one hit in with Confusion before I am again left exposed. Bite does a little bit of damage, I knock the Gyarados out, and move on to the Ace Floatzel. And it's much better against Cresselia because it has Crunch. Because of a Citrus Berry, I'm not able to 2-hit, and that's that. Okay, so I'm a slow growth rate Pokemon. I fought basically every trainer. I think now I need to use rare candies to boost my level from 41 up to 47. I'm hoping this will allow Substitute to survive 2 turns of Bite. But in this case, I inflict Confusion on the Gyarados, it hits itself, and my next attack takes it to low health, and then it breaks my Substitute with its second hit, and Crasher Wake heals it with a Hyper Potion. I decided to re-establish Substitute, and this works out for me because the Gyarados doesn't break it before going down. Confusion does much more than half to the Floatzel, and I think I'll still be able to take it out even though it used its Citrus Berry. Crunch removes the Substitute, but I do knock it out, and all he has left is Quagsire. I don't really think of this thing as a fantastic offensive Pokemon, so I decided to set up with Substitute again. I was a little surprised when I looked at its attack, and this is actually higher than all of its other stats. In the end, it doesn't matter though, because it can't break my Substitute, and I 2-hit. I chase a Team Galactic Grunt around and give some ibuprofen to Psyducks. This gives me access to the route leading to Celestic City, and on it, I'm gonna pick up the TM for Shadow Ball. I have to face Cyrus next, and while this fight is not difficult, it does remind me that eventually I'm gonna have to face him in the Distortion world, and yeah, that is probably not going to be fun using a Psychic type. Before going to Canalave City, actually I'm second guessing the pronunciation on that. Is it Canalave, or is it Canalave City? It's probably a third option that I'm not aware of. Anyways, before I go to Canalave City, I'm going to backtrack to Wayward Cave. On my way, there is this little hidden cut tree, and behind it is a PP up. Then inside the cave, I grab the rare candy, and I'm also going to visit Floroma Meadow to pick up 2 more of these items. 1 PP up, which is hidden here, a Miracle Seed to boost the power of Grass Knot. I think I will need that against Byron, and then finally the rare candy. Okay, it is time to sail west. I get 1 more rare candy by doing this, and now I have to face Barry on the bridge in Canalave City. By this point, I was feeling the need for Grass Knot. It is going to help out against his Empoleon, so I no longer have access to Substitute. Notably, Confusion is really bad by now. It is not able to one-hit the Heracross despite having super effective damage. Rapidash is a 2-hit, and then he sends in Empoleon, and Grass Knot only does a third. I find it hilarious that this steel type is lighter than Cresselia. Its weight is 186.3 pounds or 84.5 kilograms. So they are very similar, but it just seems so off. It has no material impact on this battle, I still win. Byron's gym is next, and there are a lot of mandatory trainers in here. I'm gonna save before the third one just because he has a Scissor, and it does know a bug type move. My best option against it is to use Confusion, and this is only doing 1/4. X-Scissor is doing more to me each turn, and as a result, my Legendary has a reset here. Using a Citrus Berry, I thought I would be able to survive, but I don't even need it because Cresselia gets a critical hit. There are no other problematic battles in the gym, so now let's face Byron. Magneton is his first Pokemon, and I really don't have good options against it. Let's go through the effective powers of my moves. Confusion is 37, Return is 51, and Aurora Beam is 32. Notably, I'm not able to calculate the power of Grass Knot as it stands right now. That is going to be an update I make to my software early on in 2024. After using Metal Sound, the Magneton is dealing so much with Thunderbolt, and then Byron uses a Hyper Potion, crushing my hopes. I tried again, not really sure what I was hoping for, but in this case it crits, so the Magneton does faint without dealing any damage. -2 special defense isn't that relevant because the Steelix and the Bastiodon really are not special attackers. His Ace is next, and I was so surprised how little Grass Knot does to it. I guess the Steel type does resist this move. Contributing to this is the fact that Bastiodon has good special defense as well. Normally I write this Pokemon off because it doesn't seem very good, it has low attacking stats, but when it gets a lot of hits in, it can do decent damage, and it takes Cresselia down to red health before I knock it out. Last is Steelix. Please Grass Knot come through for me. And in this case it doesn't. The Steel type uses Flash Cannon, which is a special move, and so apparently Metal Sound does matter, but Cresselia hangs on with 7 hit points and finishes Byron. Proceeding with the plot, I wanted to show the footage of me going through Lake Valor. This area is so horrifying. The Magikarp are just splashing around with no water. Like, I'm sure they're gonna be fine, this is a kid's game, and the developers would never kill a bunch of Pokemon like this, but part of my brain always says, no, those Magikarp definitely died. Commander Saturn is next. I probably should have taught Shadow Ball by this point in the run. I'm definitely conditioned from Generation 2 and 3 to think this is a physical move. It took me so long to retrain and realize that for Generation 2 and 3, and now doing the inverse operation is once again taking some time. Here it would have helped against the Bronzor, not only in this battle, but also in the one against Mars. In Mount Coronet to grab a hidden rare candy, and then in the next area, I pick up the Nevermelt Ice. Outside of the cave, there is a hidden PP up over here, and then I battle Ace Trainer Maria. She's technically optional because she's a spinner, but she catches me today. I wasn't worried about this fight, but then the Rapidash burns Cresselia. I'm taking a lot of passive damage. Grassknot gets disabled right before the Pseudo-Wudo, and Confusion is not able to one-hit it. To buy time, it goes for Endurer, surviving another hit, so I take hail damage and burn damage. That means Cresselia barely lives through another optional battle. Luckily, there is only one mandatory trainer between here and the little house where you can heal in the bed, and this person only has a Tropius, so I easily one-shot. I think it might even be good that I healed here, because then, after talking to Maylene, the blizzard starts, and I go up against Ace Trainer Dalton. He has an Electabuzz and a Magmar. This shouldn't be a problem, but I get paralyzed, and then the Magmar knows Feint Attack, and it is doing decent damage. So this could also be a reset if Paralysis prevents my next move, but it doesn't and Magmar goes down. Cresselia survived with 12 hit points. With that, I enter the Snowpoint City Gym, solve the awesome puzzle in here, and then before facing Candice, I teach Shadow Ball in the place of return. Her first Pokemon is Sneasel. It has Dark-type moves in the form of Feint Attack, but it isn't faster than Cresselia. That said, I don't really have any good options against it. I guess Shadow Ball is the best, but it does so little damage. I switch to using Aurora Beam, just in case I lower its attack stat, but I don't, and so I lose to her first Pokemon. If I use 4 rare candies, I can bring Cresselia up to level 57, where it can learn Moonlight. Because there was no day-night system in Generation 3, this move interacts with the weather instead. If there's no weather on the field, it's going to restore half of my health. If it's sunny, then it's going to restore 2/3 of my HP, which is pretty weird considering this move is called Moonlight. And if any other weather is present, specifically in this case hail, then it will restore 1/4 of my total HP. While Sneasel is going to take a while to knock out, I can use Moonlight against it to heal because snow will not be on the field yet. By doing this, I can make it past her lead onto the Frostlass. Shadow Ball takes it to red health, it restores health with his Citrus Berry, sets up Double Team, which gets quite annoying, but eventually I do knock it out. Abomasnow is next. Its ability is Snow Warning, so now there is hail on the field, meaning Moonlight will heal less. And in this case, the chip damage plus getting hit by moves like Wood Hammer is just too much. She crushes my hopes further by using a full restore, and that's that. The answer here is to anticipate when the healing item is going to occur, then use Moonlight and continue attacking after that. I can just barely edge the Abomasnow out and move on to the final Pokemon, Piloswine. I deplete Moonlight's PP, use 2 Grass Knots to finish off the Piloswine, and in doing so I have earned myself the 7th badge. This run has been very rough until this point, but access to Rock Climb out of battle is going to change everything. I can use it south of Snowpoint City to grab the TM for Ice Beam, which is a fantastic replacement for Aurora Beam. Then just west of Celestic Town, after battling one trainer, I can smash a rock, use Rock Climb, and grab the TM for Psychic. If you thought buying it in the game corner would be faster, I kept checking that throughout the playthrough and I just don't have enough money. Swords Dance seems cheap in comparison, it's only 4,000 coins, whereas Psychic is 10,000. The other moves that also cost this much are Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Flamethrower. In the Galactic Veilstone building, Cyrus gives a speech. I just want to mention here that there are so many grunts watching him. When I was first playing this game, I thought that I might have to defeat all of them in order to proceed with the plot. Obviously you don't. You don't even have to fight one. The next battle is just Cyrus, which feels kind of wrong. I wish I could say this battle is simple because it's supposed to be easy, but the Sneasel takes a while to knock out, and then the Haunchcrow does not go down to a single Ice Beam. Luckily I freeze it, so it is free, but the Crobat does damage, and Cresselia is left with under half health by the time I win, which is not particularly encouraging because immediately following this, I'm going to have to journey into the Distortion world to fight Cyrus again. With his expanded and fully evolved team, this fight is much more difficult, and without using rare candies, Cresselia doesn't stand a chance. I have a total of 6 right now, so I'll use all of those to boost me up to level 67. On the way, I have the chance to learn Psycho Cut. It only has base 70 power. While it does have an increased critical hit rate, it is a physical move, and Psychic has higher base power, so I don't want to change my moveset at this point. Over the next 2 fights, I have 2 losses because the Houndoom loves to burn using Will-O-Wisp. When I resume filming this series in 2024, I am definitely going to be using a Rostberry or having the move Rest by this point in my playthrough. Trying to make it through 5 team members when you're burnt, even if you have a healing move like Moonlight, just isn't a good idea. This fight continues being brutal. The Houndoom eventually gets frozen, and then Cyrus switches it out, sending in Weavile next. I don't have good moves against this thing, so I have to rely on Moonlight to heal while doing a little bit of damage to it here and there. Finally, I knock it out, he sends in his Houndoom again, and I finish it, moving on to the rest of the fight with more than half health. Ice Beam is able to one-hit the Haunch Crow, as well as the following Crobat, and all that remains is Gyarados. I figured Psychic would 2-hit, and I'm gonna survive whatever it throws at me, but Cresselia speeds things up with a crit. With Cyrus finished, I can now fight Giratina. In this case, I'm actually gonna catch it. I'm sure this isn't relevant at all. I'm just drawing attention to the box legendary 1 day before the end of daily December. It definitely doesn't mean anything about tomorrow's video. On the way to Sunyshore City, I grab a PP up. I've focused on these items in this run specifically because Cresselia is a low PP Pokemon. After all, it is relying on Psychic and Ice Beam. Within the city, just outside of the lighthouse, I grab the Zap Plate, which will be relevant later on. But first, I have to face Volkner. Things do not start out well. With the assistance of the Mind Plate, Psychic does not one-shot the Jolteon, and then it paralyzes me with Thunder Wave. Volkner uses a Hyper Potion, but it doesn't save his lead because I got a special defense drop. Raichu is next. It has Signal Beam, which is super effective. It does about a third before fainting, and then he sends in Luxray. Now this thing would be terrifying if it was a Dark type. Believe me, it should be a Dark type, just like Venomoth. I think that makes the most sense. Even as a Mono Electric type, it still has Crunch, which takes me to just above half health, and then I take it to low health, he heals it, and I finish it with a better damage roll. Last is Electivire. This thing does not have any super effective moves, but Thunder Punch does decent damage. Psychic takes it to red. It heals a little bit with a Citrus Berry, but not out of KO range. Next it goes for Giga Impact, taking Cresselia to red health, but because it has to recharge, I get one more Psychic in and defeat the final gym leader. When I initially planned this run, I thought it was going to be fairly easy. Psychic types are very good in the first 3 generations, and on face value alone, as a legendary Pokemon, Cresselia seems like it should be quite good. That said, there have been so many areas in this game where I have been slowed down. Another one of them is in Victory Road against 8th trainer Mariah. She has a Blissey, and if you are running exclusively special moves, this thing can take a long time to knock out. In this case, I'm not going to be able to knock it out because it has the move Soft Boiled. Oh, there is a icon error on my overlay. I thought I had got all of those by this point. Anyways, using this normal recovery move, it's just going to constantly heal and I'm never going to take it out until I get a freeze. Once that happens, I should have the time I need to finish it off, and I do. Okay, while editing this series, I have noticed that every time the opponent gets a status condition, it shows up as burn on my overlay. That is a really weird bug. Hopefully I'll have it fixed for the first video in 2024. Okay, now back to the run. From there, the fight is easier, despite the fact that the Magnezone resists my moves. So it's time to face Barry right before the league. This is by far the best team he has throughout the game. That said, things start off very well for me. I sweep through his first 3 Pokemon in a series of 1-hits. The Snorlax is a little bit different though. I'm not going to be able to 1-hit it with anything, but Grass Knot can do a lot of damage since this Pokemon is very heavy. This is still a mistake because Psychic would be doing more damage. I probably would have 2-hit and prevented it from using Rest. Either way, it goes down. I clean up the following Empoleon using Grass Knot and 1-hit the Rapidash with Psychic. With Barry defeated, it's time to take on the Elite Four. Aaron is the first member. He leads with a Yanmega, and Ice Beam is able to 1-hit. Following that, he sends in Scizor, and it does have X-Scissor, which can do a lot of damage, especially when it gets a critical hit. Cresselia survives only with 16 HP, and because of the damage Psychic has been dealing, Aaron uses a healing item. I try to continue the fight using Moonlight, but in the end it's not enough, and I have a loss. There's an easy way to play around this. If I use Psychic turn 1 and then Ice Beam on turn 2, I could potentially freeze, which I do, but it just defrosts anyways. From there it is going to have enough health that he won't use a healing item on it and I can knock it out on the next turn. The following Vespiquen survives Ice Beam and uses attack order, but luckily it doesn't do that much. I anticipate the healing item, healing with Moonlight myself. I take it back down to red health, heal, and then knock it out. There's only 2 Pokemon left. Drapion is first. I can't use Psychic against it, so I'm going to have to use Ice Beam. It gets a Crit X Scissorin, which is not enough for it. Despite Aaron using a full restore, this doesn't allow him to get one more hit in, and then I one-hit the Heracross. To this point in the run, I have kept Grass Knot on my set just so that I can deal with Bertha's Rock-type Pokemon. Also, of course, Ice Beam is fantastic here, so I have no problems. Against Flint, I make a mistake. I really should have taught Charge Beam in the place of Grass Knot, because boosting my special attack early on into the fight against the Houndoom would have been very advantageous. Without doing that, the fight isn't as easy as it could have been, but either way it doesn't end up mattering. I do just want to draw your attention to the Magmortar's moveset because it's so diverse. Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Solar Beam, and Hyper Beam. None of which are good against Cresselia. I rectify my mistake and teach Charge Beam now before facing Lucian. His first Pokemon is Mr. Mime, and I'm just going to use Charge Beam here to set up my special attack stat. By the time it goes down, I have +3, so the rest of the battle is going to be much easier. I continue trying to boost my special attack, but it doesn't work out against the Espeon. Against Alakazam, I start using Ice Beam, one-shotting the powerful Psychic type, and then Lucian sends in Bronzong. This really does feel like his ace. With most Pokemon, I do not have one-hits. I go for Charge Beam twice, it's my most powerful move, and it also boosts my special attack twice, so of course the Gallade that follows is not a threat. Before proceeding, I use my final 2 rare candies, boosting Cresselia to level 77. Now it's time for Cynthia. To this point in my Pokemon Platinum series, I have not had a single reset against her. This has been very surprising for me because everyone rants and raves about how good Cynthia is. In a solo playthrough, she's not that hard because you can just set up against her Spiritomb, in this case using Charge Beam. Dark Pulse isn't doing enough damage to me and there's no weather on the field, so I can always heal with Moonlight. In this case I do, going back to full health over 2 turns, and then I use Ice Beam to knock her lead out. Lucario's next, of course Psychic is the correct choice here. It gets a one-shot, and then she sends in Garchomp. But it takes 4 times damage from Ice Beam. Milotic follows, of course Charge Beam is the right choice here. It doesn't get the knockout, and yeah, the water type reflects the damage back at me using Mirror Coat. That is my first reset to Cynthia. I think it makes sense it occurred in this run. After all, Cresselia has been pretty underwhelming. I didn't know what to do against the Milotic. In the next fight, I just go for Psychic and hope it doesn't use Mirror Coat. In this case, it goes for Surf. She uses a full restore, and then my following Psychic knocks it out due to the first one, which got a special defense drop. From there, I just have to clean up the final 2 Pokemon, which Cresselia has coverage against. It clocks in with a first playthrough time of 2 hours, 58 minutes, and 17 seconds, with 22 resets at level 77. This is a game time of 7 hours and 44 minutes. As a legendary Pokemon, Cresselia did not perform very well, but when put in the context of all the runs I've done this week, it was decent. Today it earns itself the 2nd spot in my tier list, just behind Staraptor and ahead of Infernape. It's closer to the Fire-type starters time, but I do think there's a way to improve Cresselia's runs significantly. While playing these runs, I was forgetting the fact that there is a move tutor just after Pastoria City. This is the Cerebi page showing you all the moves he can teach your Pokemon. Some of these are fantastic. For example, the 3 elemental punches, as well as Zen Headbutt. And I think I should have collected the blue shards and yellow shards required to teach this move, so I didn't have to rely on confusion for so long. I wasn't thinking of this as a possibility because this move isn't reflected visually on my overlay. That's just because the Generation 4 movesets are so large. If I also showed tutor moves, things would get very cramped. Because, for example, Cresselia can learn 11 moves this way. Tomorrow is the last day of Daily December. It's also the last day of the year, and the final episode in this Platinum mini-series. I think there's only one Pokemon that makes sense to do next, and if you were paying attention to this video, you will already know who it is. Before concluding, as a quick reminder, I want to mention the fact that there will be no fully produced videos coming out in January. I'm likely going to stream a little bit during this month because I want to do a bunch of re-rankings in Pokemon Yellow, but that's going to be it. Starting sometime in February, videos will be back on Saturdays as is usual. Okay, so that's it. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in tomorrow's grand finale.